and I encourage you to keep subscribing to our channel so that it grows as fast as possible. And it's only that sometimes I'm too busy trying to create content, listen to this, and also trying to build content for grade 10. So thank you so much and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to take maybe about 15 or 20 minutes so that I can create again another moment to do a video. So guys, checking on things out there. Uganda election is under siege as Museveni is seeking the 7th term of leadership. So guys, looking at information out there, Nyagalanye, whoa, my goodness, what is this? Bob Wine is the easiest name, has been under attacks from left to right since last year. Of course, you used to see on my channel as I talked about him. And currently, of course, we are now focused on... just put the food on the table, guys. You know I can't eat when it's facing this side. So, looking at what has been happening in Uganda, things have not been so fine. And I want us to look at some receipts right here, just as we begin. Then we'll be going to TRaore and much more. Ona, hii ingine haikuwa tupakue. Ilikuwa tutumia soup. We want to eat so
Uganda
much
is heading into a high-stakes election under the sharp...
Punguza, nini? Iko na nyama ngapi ndani? Punguza hizi nyama mbili hizo utoe. Ilikuwa tu tumepika sababu ya soup. Alafu hiyo nyama tutatumia kesho. Alright, so let's check on Uganda election under siege.
Out of tear gas, troops and fear, the opposition presidential candidate Bobby Wine is campaigning in a flak jacket and helmet, a striking image of just how hostile the political environment has become. The musician turned politician whose real name is Kyagulanyi Sentamu is taking on the veteran leader NYERi, who has ruled the East African nation since 1986. Over the years, constitutional safeguards like term and age limits have been removed, clearing the way for Museveni to seek a 7th term and potentially to extend his grip on power into a 5th decade. The Wine, who's 43 years old, emerged as a serious challenger after the 2021 polls when he secured more than a third of the vote, and Museveni's worst ever electoral performance. But this time, Wine says the campaign has been militarized with security forces regularly breaking up his rallies, firing tear gas and also chasing supporters into ditches and swamps.
We are not participating in this election because it is free and fair. No. We are participating in this election to draw the attention of the world to the
Annabelle, what are you doing?
disrespect of democracy in Uganda. To the
Kuchota maji
hypocrisy
ukikunywa huko hapana.
of the Ugandan government.
Human rights groups say that the use of force, including beatings, pepper spray and mass arrests, amount to a systematic campaign of repression. At least about 3 deaths have been reported around the opposition event. Allegations the police say they are unaware of. For many, the election is less a contest and more a ritual that is designed to maintain the status in a country of about 45 million people.
The moment you see political positions as a means of living, you then become a problem for your country. Since 1971, we left well-paying jobs to fight Idi Amin. Why? It is because we were sure that he would block our vision of patriotism, Pan-Africanism, democracy.
Now, adding to the tensions are fears of dynastic rule. Museveni's son, the army chief Muhoozi Kainerugaba, has publicly signaled his ambitions, even issuing threats against the opposition in the past, raising alarm bells about the role of the military in politics. Civil society voices are also under pressure. Prominent government critics have been arrested and jailed just weeks before the voting, sparking concerns that dissent is being silenced at a very critical moment.
Alrighty, guys. Good night. oh my God, I was speaking all through and there was the off. Oh my God, nobody was telling me. Anyway, I've started again and I indicate this. It's unfortunate that in Uganda, things are still very dark. And I've been watching for a while. What I've been seeing is a very dark moment for Bobby Wine. Bobby Wine has been in a real war. And of course, for you to manage that fierce moment, you must be fearless and categorically focused towards saving your nation for you to be able to overcome or rather fight against the spirit of what is going on. It's unfortunate that Museveni has made it categorically that he cannot hand over leadership to anybody just like that. Instead, they have to go to the bush. He also indicated that he saved the nation in 1971 from, Idi Amin by leaving a lucrative job to go and fight. And after he got it, then he became another Idi Amin because he's not actually ready to leave. He means a business. And it's unfortunate all through, Bobby Wine has gone through a very tough moment. Do you remember the time Jaggi and Nicholas from Kenya went to campaign with Bobby Wine and they were put into a fridge quote? And later on, when they were released, Museveni was not ashamed to say statements such as, if they come again, they'll face the worst time, especially when we're approaching elections and something like that. He said that the reason why he doesn't want to walk out of leadership is as a result of knowing very well that the young people are coming to kill Pan-Africanism since they're being sponsored by externals. How true is this? I don't just understand it. Maybe it's fear for democracy, most of our grandparents are conservatives. And of course, they believe they have the best policies. They can do the best for the nation. Of course, we have people who can actually hang on to the external world to lead whatever they do. But what I believe is also that we have to give the young people space to lead. Come on, because we can't actually have the past policies ruling through forever. But anyway, let's look at the latest statement from Bob Wine. Tomorrow is not another day. Maji yalichemka. Alright guys, to avoid copyright, I'll not play that song from Uganda. But that is the state of events. Everywhere Bobby Wine is going, we are seeing a crowd, which means that Ugandans are actually ready to support him. Unfortunately, in Africa, the crowds can stand with you. But when it comes to the election day, they'll be frustrated from not voting because automatically Museveni is seeing regions where they are strongly coming to support Bobby Wine. We hope for the best for Uganda, but the situation there is very dim. Of course, the international world is looking carefully, but I don't know. When it comes to matters international intervention, Museveni is a closed cupboard. So I just hope that everything will be fine. But with his mindset, I'm telling you, and remember currently his son is in the army. So anything can happen anytime. So let's hope for the best as we wait for this. And now let's go to the information about Burkina Faso. Of course, it's very unfortunate that Burkina Faso, there was an attempt to assassinate TRaore today. And it's indicated that it is this guy he sent out from Burkina Faso and he stayed in Togo. And we've had a lot of complaints from Burkina Faso blaming the neighbors and also blaming the external forces who are actually pushing him and trying to assassinate him, because they feel like when he tries to make Burkina Faso developed world, then some people don't feel all right with that. So, of course, today there was a detonation that was actually detonated, a bomb kind of arrangement that was detonated before TRaore reached this place. And it's just out of high intelligence that this was able to be protected. Now, if you look back in history last year, there was a moment when TRaore was almost killed again. Somebody just shot almost at his destination. And of course, somebody came up to say he had been sent to assassinate him and he was not willing to do so. Why do we hate ourselves as Africa? You know, that's the question I keep asking. Because we have leaders all over Africa who are very selfish, corrupt, violent. They're very much into political conflicts. They are ready to actually conduct, crimes that are to the extreme. Some of them are nepotic, some of them squander money left and right and try so much to make sure that they just benefit themselves and not the entire nation. And these are the leaders we could be actually fighting for to get out of leadership. But I don't know whether Africa we are cursed or we are cursing ourselves. If you see somebody like TRaore and somebody wants to assassinate him, come on, like seriously? This is a leader who is focused towards improving Burkina Faso. He's out there trying so much to, make TRaore a better place, intensifying matters to do with technology. He is advancing agriculture and all other fronts. Yeah, so you listen to the dream by TRaore, it's just positive, positive. So I'm like, what the hell does this other person want to assassinate TRaore want? Does he want Burkina Faso to crumble and go on the knees, to rely on aids like loans and all those sorts of things that we see other countries do, like what Kenya is doing? Like, come on. Seriously, when I look at Burkina Faso, I don't see a reason why one would want to assassinate TRaore unless they are retrogressive. Progressive people wouldn't do that. So I hope that they'll continue, the security will continue to do surveillance and they'll actually protect their president and make sure that things will become better one day, so that people keep referring to it. We're just seeing people referring to Malaysia, Seychelles, and these other countries as if Africa has no point of reference. But anyway, it is what it is. So as we continue into this discussion, guys, we need to talk about the aspect of the goons also in Meru. Goonism is one aspect that is very frustrating in Kenya, and it began just the moment multipartyism struck in and people started to fight for leadership. So it has come to a moment when people believe they can hire individuals who are criminal just shortly on kind of errands during election or during campaigns or during such mobilization contract, so that they use them maybe to destroy the visions of the people. Now, something like that happened during the demonstrations that ran in the country last year. We saw goons coming to the city and disrupting very picketing processes, and some of them were escorted by the police, unfortunately. And it was actually verified by Laro Madoa and many other people who came to speak out. And even though Sakaja, as governor of Nairobi, among other leaders, tried to argue against this, declaration, it just did not add up. Come on, like how would people just be, the police be standing and some people are destroying property and they are not touched? But when common citizens are picketing, they are tied in a place and there is some, and like they are being thrown into a very insecure end. You remember Laro Madoa saving some groups of people who had been actually put in a very fixed end? I hope you remember that scene. I can remember it very well, how those people really thanked Laro Madoa for saving them from that place. And unfortunately, the goons are now becoming too much. My worry is that politicians at least have bulletproof, dresses, clothes. Of course, we remember what happened with Gashago when he was going to Narok and some people had blocked him. Do you remember what he did? He actually went there with a bulletproof helmets, bulletproof kind of wares, and he was safe. He went on with his speech and everything went on until the end. They have high-end vehicles, some of these state-of-art vehicles where you cannot also have penetrative bullets to their houses or to their vehicles and such a thing. What about the common citizen? And come on, let's agree. In Kenya, a lot of population are poor, extremely poor, as poor as a church mouse, if I can say. And these people cannot have any protective gadgets, leave alone even helmet. They don't even afford helmets on their motorbikes. When the helmet they were given while buying the motorbike is destroyed, they have to drive. You've seen people riding in Kenya without helmets. Do you ask yourself why that happens? It's because the kasongoism is eating into our pockets, guys. So you buy only basics and forget about the others. You see others as luxuries, So looking at what is happening, Goonism is going to affect common citizens. Common citizens, okay? You remember the aspect of Panyago, by the way. I had a discussion with people from Malava. And because I'm a political analyst, then I have to bring it here. Do you remember what happened during the Panyako election? It came out that that guy is very arrogant, and at the same time, he had hired goons, two groups. But then he did not have them communicate to each other. So when they came to actually, they thought the other group that was sitting was a goon group that was from the government, only to realize later that the two groups belonged to him. So these guys attacked each other and injured each other. We were just sympathizing, feeling sorry, even during reactions. But then later on, I asked myself, how comes nobody has been arrested? And it ended up to be such a scene that is very funny. So people are out there desperate. They don't have jobs. They're ready to be hired for a month or even some weeks and be paid just some little money for drinks and maybe to buy their coffins, I can say. And once they do that, they are ready to do anything. Okay? So Goonism is actually going to affect us a lot if this behavior is going to continue in Kenya. And I'm telling you, of course, I heard David Wafula saying that wacha serikali jipange na goons na sisi pia tujipange na goons alafu tukutane mbele mbele. But I fear. Why do I fear? Because at the end of the day, the people will suffer are our parents, our sisters and brothers who are innocent. They don't know anything about Goonism. Of course, if someone throws a machete, the next person to fall down will be our innocent brothers or sisters, not these goons that we are talking about. So, in NYERi today, there were goons on the streets. And let me just get a video to show something about it. And before we proceed, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching.
Through their resilience and determination.
Oh my God, I don't want to show the TRaore story. I'm already done with it, and I'm not going back to it. Of course, I don't want to replicate the videos I already showed in another channel, so I don't want to pluralize it. So let's just check on this scenario in NYERi, guys. Those are goons with waving claps, right?
Akasema sasa ndio nikimalizia mchekeleni nikisema Singapore. Nyinyi watu ya Nyeri najua ni mwaidi barabara, nimechelewa kidogo, mpango wa hivi jana kontrakta aliniangusha kidogo. Mimi najua niliahidi ya nyinyi kuweka nyinyi pesa kwa mfuko, sijaweza kufanya. Huyu Rigijia alinisumbua nikashindwa kufanya kazi. Watu ya Nyeri ile mambo yote niliahidi nyinyi bado. Mpango nilikuwa nayo ilikuwa jua kali kidogo, haikuwa mzuri. Lakini sasa nimeketi chini na wataalamu, nimepanga vizuri. Watu ya Nyeri, mkinipatia miaka 5 nitafanya Nyeri ikuwe kama Singapore. Nasema wewe siaka. Ni muongo si muongo.
All right, that is it. Now, of course, the goons were dominating that world, but they were actually discovered early, and Rigathi Gachagua has exposed information about them. Meanwhile, you understand that NCIC is calling upon Gachagua to actually go and, address matters to do with the tribal statement. I don't know. Of course, that came out from Somali community, among others, regardless of damage control that has been done by both Kalonzo and Rigathi Gachagua himself. What do you think? What will come out of this plan? So we are going to finalize by looking at the specific nations, because the US, Trump has withdrawn US from UN and 66 international organizations. Let's check on this.
Well, thank you for staying with us. The United States President Donald Trump has announced plans to withdraw the United States from 66 United Nations and international organizations, including key global platforms focused on climate change, peace, and democracy. Now, in a presidential memorandum released by the White House on Wednesday evening, President Trump the decision followed a review of organizations and treaties deemed contrary to the interests of the United States. But what does this mean for Kenya and Africa at large? Our reporter Bramwell Bwire is on the ground in Kisumu, speaking to governance expert Davis Okombo. Bramwell, what are the implications of this move?
Indeed, this announcement by US President Donald Trump has sparked debate across the globe, particularly among those countries that are still These are countries who have heavily relied on multilateral pressure to ensure that the operations are running. But with me here, I'm being joined by Davis Okombo, a governance expert here in Kisumu. Davis, thank you for speaking to us. This move by US government and President Donald Trump to withdraw from this international organization, what does it mean? What is the implication?
The decision by the United States to withdraw from 66 treaties and international organizations is first and foremost regrettable, and it undermines international cooperation. Nations since time immemorial have related through and conventions, and there are clear guidelines on how nations can relate either bilaterally or multilaterally, and this is guided by the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, and therefore a nation cannot just decide unilaterally to withdraw from a treaty without giving due notice and consideration to all the other members of convention.
Of course, when you talk about multilateral and bilateral cooperation, there's something that must always be focused on, and that is funding. A quick breakdown on how this funding and cut down of the funding is going to directly affect Kenya.
The analysis of this executive order shows that a number of international agencies like the World Health Organization and the United Nations Population Fund and so on will significantly reduce their funding, and this poses a grave risk to a number of development issues, not only in Kenya, but
ukiweza kuchukua bike ya blackness nilitaka hiyo sababu games. Anyway guys, so you've heard it. Trump is cracking down on Africa and particularly on nations and so many times in criminal activities, especially related to the Minnesota case which Gachagua was addressing recently. Of course, while we may not accept it and we might see it as a politicization or political power politics, the reality is that Kenya is at stake. And this information is not just coming today, but we've seen it coming earlier and people are just ignoring. I don't know, for whatever reason. So anyway, let's just listen to Trump a little bit and then we come to an end of it. But it's regrettable that we are going to be affected big time. I know a lot of friends who are working with the UN, for example, World Health Organization and many other organizations now. If Trump is going to withdraw from 66, not just 66 global bodies, what does that mean? Anyway, let's listen to him.
Donald Trump has announced that the United States will exit the foundational international climate agreement aimed at addressing the global climate crisis. The memorandum orders all executive departments and agencies to cease participating in and funding 35 non-United Nations organizations and 31 UN entities. The decision has drawn some strong reactions from climate organizations, many of which have described it as a major blow to global climate action. In a presidential memorandum, President Trump stated that the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, along with 65 other organizations, agencies and commissions, is contrary to the interests of the United States and will be abandoned. The memo also directs the United States to withdraw from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the UN body that is responsible for assessing climate science. Now, other prominent bodies named in the memorandum include the United Nations Population Fund, the United Nations of Women, and the UN Conference on Trade and Development. Now, the list of organizations includes the International Solar Alliance, a collaborative initiative between India and France on climate change. In a statement, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the organizations were driven by progressive ideology and were actively seeking to constrain American sovereignty. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, was adopted in June 1992 and approved later that year by the US Senate during George W. Bush's presidency. Now, President Trump has repeatedly derided the efforts to combat climate change and has scorned the scientific consensus that human activity is warming up the planet, terming climate science to be nothing more than a hoax. Now, the American president has already withdrawn from the landmark Paris Climate Accord since returning to office, and Trump has withdrawn from the accord during his first term from 2017 till 2021. However, this move was later reversed by Joe Biden. The Republican leader had also pulled the U.S. out of the World Health Organization and had sharply reduced foreign aid and funding for numerous United Nations agencies.
All right, guys, so we should be warming up for the reduction. Of course, people are talking about Tanzania, maybe thinking that Tanzania, the rejection was just out of election. But I believe that Trump has never been a very sober leader. Some people had to vote him again, and I think this is reactionist voting, when you just decide to vote against a system because of whoever was there. Now, you remember the previous president was actually not working for America, and therefore the Americans just decided to have a reactionist election where you pull out somebody, not because you care who is coming in, but you're just trying to avoid that party totally, and therefore they would not even listen to the lady as she tried so much. I thought for American, for the first time, being a nation that tells us that gender equality is possible, would have voted for that lady. But unfortunately, they went back to Trump. Trump was there. during his administration, and he just started the same moves he's now currently doing. And because he knows he's already run for president earlier, now he's going to an extent of mentor, a mentor case. How would he actually decide to just attack? Like the other day when I was looking at him addressing matters openly, also meeting Ramaphosa, talking like that, and addressing matters of Minnesota and all that. Of course, the president has a right to address such matters and maybe pull out criminals out of the nation. But now, when it comes to what he's doing, like withdrawing from 66 global organizations, what are laws on developing nations? Because I think Trump is out to make sure that he doesn't support any nation out there. And he has been arguing that it's because the resources they take there are just taken by few. Now, shame on us as leaders in these developing nations, because unfortunately, his argument might be right. Sometimes when money is collected, even in terms of loans from out there, what people come and do is to invest as individuals. You will find a president was having maybe just millions, now in billions or trillions. What that means is that they are stealing from the people. They are stealing from the money that is taken from out there. So it's unfortunate, and therefore it means that Kenyans, we are going to brace for hard times. So bye-bye and have a good night. Till tomorrow. See you again. Your host, Priska. And on Life Saga TV, let's continue subscribing, sharing, liking as we grow every day. Bye-bye.